For the better part of the day, Montgomery detectives combed Mrs. Armstrong's house on Clay Street, trying to come up with a clue as to who shot her and why. Mrs. Armstrong was found in her living room with bullet wounds to the head and chest. Police say she was shot twice with a small caliber pistol. Mrs. Armstrong was apparently getting ready to go to work, while her 5-year-old son and 9-year-old daughter were in a back bedroom getting ready for school when the shooting took place.
Apparently they saw a black male looking in the back of the house in the window. A few minutes later, the front door was kicked open or forced open, we feel like. This time, Miss Armstrong was shot. We feel like it's the same subject that was at the back of the house that did come into the front.
Mrs. Armstrong was treated on the scene by paramedics, then rushed to Baptist Medical Center in critical condition. So far, investigators have not been able to come up with a suspect or a motive in the shooting, but they say the children, who were not harmed, only heard the gunfire and could not tell authorities what took place in the living room of the house. Police say there aren't any signs of a struggle, apparently no burglary, and they have very few leads in the case. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
The Alabamians were ushered into the Oval Office where the presentation was made, with Governor James and Senators Denton and Heflin looking on. The Ronald Reagan Chair of Broadcasting was the idea of philanthropist Hall Thompson, who said he'd first considered giving the $500,000 grant to Coach Bear Bryant's athletic department, but he decided the journalism school needed it more. Thompson had asked to remain anonymous with his donation, but somehow, he says, word got out and he was asked to present the gift in the president's honor in person.
What it is saying to the people of America, I hope, is at least the people of Alabama appreciate very much what the president's attempting to do and to turn our whole nation around. That was certainly Mrs. Thompson's and my idea about it, and of course we wanted it to reflect great credit on the university.
The plan is to hire a broadcaster of national prominence to lecture students on a rotating basis. A search committee will be formed in the spring to locate candidates to fill the chair. Hall Thompson says he hasn't got anyone in mind yet for the slot, but he recommends the honor be given to someone who shares President Reagan's own hopes and goals.
Todd Strominger opened this weekend Summit Conference on Quality Education. The conference is being sponsored by the Alabama Education Association and the Alabama Association for Colleges of Teacher Education. Mr. Strominger believes the future can be bright for teachers if they make the most of the latest technology. He says computers are quickly moving into the classroom and have the potential to improve education. Mr. Strominger urged the teachers to master computers so they can in turn prepare their students for a computerized world. But the future Dr. Paul Hubbard of AEA spoke about tonight is less rosy. It concerns teacher shortages, which he says will be critical in 3 to 5 years.
The rural areas are going to be hardest hit. So we've got not only a shortage in the subject matter area, but we've got a distribution problem. It's more easy to find a teacher now in an urban area than it is in a rural area. And I think we're headed into a very, very severe teacher shortage, maybe even as great as or greater than what we saw in World War II and shortly thereafter.
Dr. Hubbard says the state will find it harder than in the past to work its way out of this shortage because it gets back to economics. According to Hubbard, many qualified people aren't interested in teaching because of low pay. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
The Kansas State offense is led by quarterback Darrell Dickey, who has thrown for 8 touchdowns this season, 6 of those to his favorite target, number 20, Mike Wallace, who caught 33 passes this year. The Wildcat running game is handled by number 42, Mark Hundley. A big reason Kansas State had a season of 6 wins, 4 losses, and 1 tie. Kansas State has been very tough on defense with a defensive secondary that's lightning quick. This pass picked off by Greg Best. Wildcat coach Jim Dickey knows the game will be a tough one.
Well, certainly Wisconsin characteristically is a big, strong football team. They have big players. I know our football team will have to play an excellent game, both offensively and defensively, to come away with a win.
Wisconsin in dark is a fine offensive unit. The key quarterback, Randy Wright, 13 touchdown passes with 2 fine receivers in Al Toon and number 88, Jeff Knoll. And the Badgers can be tricky. Here's a bounce pass to Toon and a forward pass to Knoll, who takes it in for a touchdown. On total offense, Wisconsin averaged over 400 yards per game. And the top running back for Wisconsin, number 35, Troy King, 7 touchdowns and more than 7 yards per carry. Jack O'Rourke, NBC News, reporting.
Virginia versus Georgetown. Better yet, Ralph Sampson versus Patrick Ewing. Georgetown coach John Thompson drives a team that plays very tough defense. Sophomore center Patrick Ewing is strong and a defensive force. Many compare him to a Moses Malone type player. Ewing is the kind of player that can take over a game at any time. Virginia's Ralph Sampson at 7'4" is perhaps the most coordinated and graceful big man to play the game. He can shoot from 15 feet as well as dunk from 2. Sampson makes awesome moves so easily, it's hard to realize how good he really is. And with all the pregame hype being applied to both these players, it's no wonder Sampson is downplaying the matchup.
All I do is hear about it constantly, which doesn't bother me at all. I know people are getting money for it. There's been a lot of publicity about the game. It's a game between Virginia and Georgetown, and it'll be 10 guys on the court at one time. It's not a game between me and Pat Ewing at all.
Jack Gregory, NBC News.
First started this this is now the 4th year. We wanted really outstanding teams, and we have made every effort every year. Daryl Dunleavy's office, Ed, and all of them. I tell you, that's what he's concerned about. I feel that way. I really.
I think Barry Fincher, our MVP of a year ago, being hurt and unable to play very much and certainly very effective has hurt our team some because of the skill that he takes away from our lineup. That doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to work hard and try to do the things necessary for us to win, but I do think his being out of the lineup, and being hurt even when he tried to play has hampered us somewhat. I felt like we could have and probably should have been at this point 8-2 rather than 6-4.
I'm just so glad to be here tonight to accept this kind of money from one organization. It's just unbelievable that they have put together this sort of fund, and I really am honored and thrilled. And this is what it's all about, trying to get up here to carry this old heavy check home, and I'm going to take it on back here with me now. Thank you.
Philadelphia 76ers in red were in trouble from the early moments. Cedric Maxwell on a steal of a pass from Julius. Ahead to Danny Ainge, all alone for an easy 2 points. Celtics broke off to a quick lead. 76ers Mo Cheeks down low to Julius Erving. Dr. J with 22 points tonight. But that Celtic fast break. Watch Larry Bird fake out Bobby Jones and score 33 points for Bird. 76ers stay with Celtics at times. Here's Moses on a stuff. He had 20 points tonight. Celtics again running the fast break. Bird to Henderson. He'll go back to Larry Bird. 33 points. He led the Celtics. Gerald Henderson, however, typified the performance for the Celtics. Again, the steal from Julius. He drives in all alone. Big moment for the Celtics' Nate Tiny Archibald. Here he gives off his 6,000th career assist as the Celtics beat the Philadelphia 76ers 123-97. I'm George Michael for NBC News.
It was about 7:45 this morning when police and paramedics were called to 2036 Clio Street where a death had been reported. They found 38-year-old J.K. Woods dead on the floor of a walk-in closet near the kitchen. Police say he had been shot once in the neck. Police then started their investigation, searching the house and talking to neighbors. Sometime later in the morning, they took a woman into custody for questioning in the case. And police say they found a gun, though they can't say yet if it was the gun that was used to shoot Woods. But there's more. Police say Woods may have been dead as much as 48 hours before authorities found the body. And neighbors reportedly told police this morning that there could possibly be a connection between Woods' death and the shooting of 31-year-old Annie Armstrong. She was shot yesterday in the living room of her home on Clay Street, while her children were in a back bedroom. That shooting sent Annie Armstrong to a local hospital in critical condition and left police with few leads. One thing they do say is that Ms. Armstrong, Woods, and the woman taken into custody today did know each other. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Ooh, look at them coming out of there.
During Hanukkah, a candle is lit for each of the 8 days of the celebration. Rabbi David Balinson of Temple Bethor says, like Christmas, Hanukkah is a religious and family time.
In the home, families will gather around the Hanukkah candelabra, we call it a menorah, and they will say the prayers, light the candle, sing a Hanukkah song, and this is also a time of gift giving for us as well, and so we will exchange gifts after the prayers and the lighting of the lights.
Rabbi Balinson says while Hanukkah is important, it isn't the most important holiday in the Jewish faith, and it isn't always celebrated on the same days every year.
We use the Hebrew calendar to celebrate. Now, interestingly enough, it falls on the 25th day, but of the Hebrew month, which is called Kislev. And because the Hebrew calendar is part lunar, part solar, it falls at a different time each year. Always around winter, of course. It's a winter solstice festival.
Rabbi Balinson says the Christmas season can be confusing and sometimes hurtful to Jewish children. In an area like Montgomery with a Jewish population of less than 1%, Rabbi Balinson says inadvertently Jewish children are often asked what they've bought their parents for Christmas or what they received from Santa. But Rabbi Balinson has an easy and simple way to explain the religious differences to the young children of his synagogue.
I think very simply you explain to children that they have a birthday and their friends have a birthday, and on their friend's birthday they don't get presents or have a party. Therefore their Christian friends have Christmas, and that's their time of celebration, and they have Hanukkah, and that's their time of celebration. I will say I never told my children there was no Santa Claus, though, because I didn't want them to tell their friends, my daddy said there was no Santa Claus. So we used to tell our children, of course there's a Santa Claus, but he just comes to those who celebrate Christmas.
How old are you?
6 feet 2.5.
Wow. Do you?
I want to mainly be in movies and play soccer. That's one of my favorite sports. And draw. I love art. It's one of my favorite subjects.
What do you want for Christmas?
EC. EC.
Well, you gonna get him?
Not really.
Who will eat?
Who would you like to get this gift for? Okay, well, there's not category for robots, so...
In January, we have a lot of things to do. The girls have a lot to learn, so it's best that we get them in here early. We talk with them. We let them know what's expected of them while they're here. We let the parents know what's expected of them. And this way, everybody's aware. They understand what's happening. And we feel like it makes a smoother transition in January when they get here.
I was pulling the curtains down. They were pulling the curtains back, so we're gone. And it was like probably about.
And it's probably an understatement to say that the lives of thousands of Alabama school children have been folded and bent and spindled and mutilated over the last several years because of the misuse of tests, and particularly so-called intelligence tests. Because on the basis of this standardized achievement test,
kept out of certain classes and schools, and possibly denied job opportunities because of standardized achievement tests. McDonald says he's not anti-testing, but too great a reliance on tests can be dangerous. In short, standardized tests can be misused, so they shouldn't be overused. But an assistant superintendent from Florida, Dr. Walter Harris, says standardized tests dramatically improved the schools in his Jacksonville area. Less than 20 years ago, all the schools in Duval County lost accreditation. Today, many consider Duval County the #1 urban school system in the country. Dr. Harris says the tests are a measure of achievement.
And testing itself is not going to increase or improve the academic achievement in your district. It's only going to be reflective of what is being offered to the youngsters and how well they are achieving that particular thing. So there are many other
Dr.
things
Harris
we
says
had to
too
do.
many people
One of the
equate
things we
quality
found,
education
as we
with
found across the
fantastic
country,
test scores.
and I think
To
this has
Dr.
been very,
Harris,
very
standardized
responsive.
achievement tests and competency
one of the-
exams are just one of many tools to help students realize their potential. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
William Payne shines shoes. It's what he does for a living. And more important to him, it's what he likes doing. got his start more than 30 years ago.
Why I got started from down the Trailway bus station, why I got started from. So many years ago when people was shining shoes on the street, you couldn't get a job unless you learned how to pop a shoe shine cloth. And you had to go back to learn how to do that. So that's really how I got, how I got started.
For the past 8 years, Payne has shined shoes at the Downtown or Motor Inn, now the Madison Hotel. Shining shoes all these years has allowed Payne to meet a lot of people.
I shined Eva Knievel, I shined Kenny Rogers, I shined the Jackson 5. I could tell the big spinners, and things like that. If he's a friendly guy or whatever. I know people by their shoes.
In fact, Payne himself is something of a celebrity. When representatives of the Justin Boot Company and the Bostonia Shoe Store saw him shining shoes recently in Montgomery, they invited him to appear at programs in Denver and Miami early next year to shine shoes and help promote their products.
I love it. I'm doing this. And I don't think anything else I want to do but do this.
But even though Payne is looking forward to the trips, it's the people in Alabama that he likes serving most. After all, it's where he got his start. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
I think that probably the biggest difference is the electric lights that we have on our trees, some of the tinsel and glitter that we use today as far as the decorations go. And then in those days, a great deal more emphasis was put on well, we put a lot of emphasis on food, but there was even more emphasis on food and less on presents.
Friday morning, police were called to 820 Clay Street to report of a subject shot. Authorities found 31-year-old Anna Armstrong with bullet wounds to the head and chest. She was rushed to Baptist Medical Center in critical condition. Police had few clues in the case. About 24 hours later, police were called to 3026 Clio Street to report of a death. Inside of a small room off of the kitchen, police found the body of 37-year-old Jack Woods. He'd been shot once in the neck. Later that day, police charged 31-year-old Juanita Poole, who also lived at 3026 Clio Street, with Woods' murder. In a news conference, Chief of Detectives Major E.B. Alford says additional charges have been filed against Poole and another person has been arrested in the case. Poole has been charged with attempted murder and robbery in connection with the Armstrong shooting. Also charged with murder, robbery, and attempted murder is 48-year-old Arthurine Ringstaff of 3042 Clio Street. Major Alford said the case fell together during the investigation into the Woods murder and eventually led investigators back to the Armstrong shooting. Major Alford says his men are still trying to put all the pieces together.
We are still working on the motive at this time. Of course, the first degree of robbery would tell you that there was some property taken, which could be one of the motives.
While many of the details remain sketchy, Major Alford did say that all four of the people involved in the case did know each other, and it appears at this time the Woods shooting took place Thursday before Mrs. Armstrong was gunned down in the living room of her house.
Both company and union officials were calling today's vote the most crucial decision in the history of the Opelika Uniroyal plant. About 2 months ago, Uniroyal laid off 620 workers, saying the plant was non-competitive. The company said it was producing more tires cheaper at 2 of its Midwestern plants. Local union president Harold Watt said the workers had to make concessions to keep the business in Alabama.
It had gotten to the point, or we had gotten to the point that the possibility of losing our plant completely was at hand.
The message apparently got through because 96% of the rubber workers voted for a $1.25 an hour wage cut and an increase in production quotas.
It's just something that we don't like, but something we have to do to keep our jobs.
Oh, I voted yes. And the reason I voted yes, it was something like a do or die situation, so who wants to die?
Because if you vote against it, you don't have a job. Just that simple.
Union officials say the workers can handle the extra production, and if they produce more, the pay cut won't hurt as much. But the bottom line is plant manager Jim Lane says he can start recalling laid-off workers in February. Watt says the recall will be gradual, but hopefully all 650 workers will get their jobs back.
Eventually we'll have them all back, and hopefully more, because it's been since 1978 since we hired anybody. And I'm ready for them to hire a few instead of lay off.
After the vote, company and union officials were boasting about a new era of cooperation and called the vote the first big step to ensure the long-term viability of the Opelika plant. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News, Opelika.
After 8 years, the Auburn football team is back in the bowl business, the Tangerine Bowl. Over the next few days, the team will hold morning practices and spend their afternoon seeing the many sights of this Central Florida tourist attraction. They'll see Disney World, SeaWorld, the newest attraction, Epcot, the Kennedy Space Center, and who knows what else. The starting defensive team goes directly from here to Disney World. There, the Ms. Luke TV people will record player introductions for Saturday night's telecast. Tomorrow's big attraction will be a parade at Disney World with the coaches, Pat Dye and Jack Bicknell, and the opposing quarterbacks, Randy Campbell and Doug Flutie, serving as parade marshals. WSFA TV Sports will broadcast a Tangerine Bowl special Thursday night at 8 o'clock from Orlando, Florida. This is Phil Snow reporting.
Down 68-63. Scott Clark for NBC News.
Same game again. Is it March or April or one of those times? Bob Neal will be.
The Consumer Credit Office acts as a debtor court in a sense and handles money for folks who are overextended, similar to the way a bank would in a consolidation loan. In fact, the Consumer Credit Office is a go-between for creditors and debtors.
The main thing we do is try to find out just what the trouble is.
Help seekers are asked to list all expenses to give a total financial picture. Then the credit counselors work out a debt repayment plan.
Ask them to ask their creditors to reduce the payment as much as half. They usually cannot go any lower than that. But if the debtor can afford to pay 1/2 of the monthly contract payment on each account, except for secured accounts such as car payments, if they can afford this, then we can afford to help them. We add to that a $5 fee for our handling expenses for those who can afford it. And this money is put into a trust account for the debtor, and we disperse it once a month to their creditors.
Ms. Farmer says many people mismanage their money and overcharge. She says credit is easy to get and use instead of cash. Ms. Farmer says Christmas season is always a popular time for using charge cards, and she says her office is a popular place during the months of January, February, and March. Ms. Farmer says merchants support consumer credit counseling. In fact, they are responsible for its existence. The office helps people avoid bankruptcy, and merchants get their money eventually. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
For ourselves, but I want to congratulate you. Had I known that you were going to take children out, really do answer myself, and I'm just now learning to know if there was anything on pushing. A market access fee would also tend to be more acceptable to the American public, particularly to our older people who must live on fixed incomes. They don't spend a large percentage of their money on manufactured goods. Their chief concerns are food, medicine, and utility bills. In fact, because of what unemployment does to the Social Security Trust Fund, The cure for unemployment should be required to benefit that fund. For that reason, it is proposed that the proceeds from the market access fee be allocated to the Social Security system as an additional revenue source.
Yes, sir. This is Tilly.
The suit filed in Montgomery County Circuit Court charges Auburn University with not paying Mr. Rigby according to a published pay plan. Mr. Rigby's attorney, Jim DeBartoleben, says prior to filing the lawsuit, his client tried to work matters out with university officials, but to no avail.
We have requested from Auburn University to be provided a university compensation plan for all law enforcement officers employed by Auburn University. They did not respond to our letter. However, we do have what we believe to be an accurate title code certified to the October 27th, 1982. And that title code shows a minimum and a maximum. And based on that, Mr. Rigby is approximately $700 a year under his title code.
The suit also charges Auburn University with not calculating overtime correctly and asked the court to order Auburn University to pay Donald Rigby the difference in the overtime plus $200,000 in compensatory and punitive damages and attorney's fees. Auburn University officials say they'll review the suit and make the appropriate legal response. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
This was the first regular meeting of the council since it was organized in October. But since then, subcommittees have been working on defining just what it is the council will do. The council was formed to determine what problems and opportunities will face the state in the next 10 years and how higher education can help.
It is clear that Alabama, although it is in the depths of an economic recession today, is considered by almost everyone to have enormous potential, enormous natural wealth.
What is not so clear is how to make the most of Alabama's potential. A guest speaker at today's meeting was former Governor of South Carolina, John West, who helped establish that state's vocational education program.
It takes the input of both the educators and the political element, but also the business element, because all too often we fail to recognize the practical applications necessary for or in the educational process.
The committee is supposed to submit a full report of its findings early next May. Right now, what the committee is trying to do is determine the problems and questions facing higher education. They'll deal with the answers later. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News in Selma.
One thing that came out of the negotiation is that stabilizing rates for the gas company will be more difficult than for the power company. The power company has more flexibility in pricing because it generates its own product, while Alagasco is just a distributor. The price Alagasco pays for gas is set by the federal government and makes up 80% of customers' bills. The other 20% of the bill is maintenance and operating costs incurred by Alagasco in supplying gas. Another problem in stabilizing rates is that Alagasco's income is directly related to the weather. The gas company derives most of its income from home and commercial heating, which means the company's income depends on how cold or mild the winter is. Company officials pointed out that rate stabilization may work well in leveling the utilities' income, but it may not do the same for customers' bills, since Alagasco has no control over the price of gas or the weather. The PSC staff and company officials are trying to plug in different factors in hopes of arriving at a plan that will allow Alagasco to make a fair profit, while at the same time leveling customers' bills. The PSC also continued to hear testimony in General Telephone's request for an $11.5 million increase in rates. Final argument should be heard in January, and the PSC is supposed to make a ruling on the case by the 1st of February. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
I still have problems with the tax itself. Pardon? Everybody's got a copy of it. Dave, you, it's really the... Thank you very much. Yeah, I've seen you too before. I have. Yes, sir. Yeah. They do a complete job description on all of them. They survey all the employees, and they make their recommendations. And they look primary.
Was one of the biggest oil hits in the century. Thank goodness I got to be there. I also heard some of these gentlemen talking about they don't seem to realize or maybe care that those service industries cannot survive alone. Some top business executives say we can compete if only we'll become more productive. How many to our plant right here and spent about would merely amount to labor parity, an equalization of foreign and domestic labor rates. It would also, for the first time, place a definite value on the right to do business in the United States, a right that indeed has a value, as our trading partners well know. Free traders might complain that such a fee might give our own manufacturers an unfair advantage over foreign competitors, as though we shouldn't be worried about the survival of our own economy first. But with no import limitations or restriction, competition would still exist. So American industry would still have to work hard, modernize, and improve productivity in order to survive.
The Auburn football team is splitting its day into two parts. Morning times are serious practice times here at Evans High School here in Orlando. And then in the afternoon, it will be to the various sites around this city, one of the great tourist attractions of America. 3 days of practice at home was devoted to installing the game plan for Boston College. Down here, there'll be a day or so of contact work and then the slow polishing off process as Saturday's game approaches. In the afternoons, the team will tour the sites. They'll see the Epcot Center, the Magic Kingdom at Disney World, SeaWorld. They will take an afternoon at the Kennedy Space Center. We asked Coach Pat Dye if he's concerned about all the time the players will be spending on their feet.
Well, it's going to be different for sure, and they will spend a lot of time on their feet today and again Thursday and probably Wednesday too when we go over to the Space Center. But we'll shorten practices some and try to get them off the field, and we'll rest Friday and Saturday. So and then it's a night game, so we should be ready to play as far as the rest is concerned Saturday night.
Again, we would remind you of our Tangerine Bowl special, which will be seen on TV 12 Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Reporting from Orlando, Florida, this is Phil Snow for WSFA TV Sports.
When the council met today in Selma, there was talk of a contrast between Alabama's potential and what's being done with that potential. But that's just a start for the council on the overall job of determining the direction of higher education in the state.
Our major interest, of course, is in the future of the educational program. But we think that it's a key to bringing Alabama's people to the place where they can benefit from the resources and the advantages that this state offers.
Former South Carolina Governor John West was on hand at today's meeting to offer his advice on how to make the most of the state's resources.
The future of education is too important to be left solely to the politicians or solely to the educators or even to a combination of the two. The involvement of the business sector is most important if the future of education is to realize its full potential.
And we think that the quality of the people that we have and the contacts that they have with the places where decisions are made, that we have an excellent chance of getting our recommendations before the governor, the legislature, the educational community of the state, and having something good come out of it.
Once the council members have defined the problems and opportunities the state will face in the next 10 years, they'll start working on the solutions and hoping their ideas can be translated into workable programs for improving higher education when they file a final report early in May. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News in Selma.
Well, I think that we learned a lot about how to deal with the media, to be more open with them and what goes on in an ethics commission. Secondly, we saw the need for some type of deep study of the influence that PACs are now having and certainly will have in future elections at the state and possibly, Norman, at the county and municipal level in elections.
Was it discussed that the PACs are able to change an entire election?
Yes. For example, in California, only about 12% of the receipts in this last election to the various candidates came from individuals, and the remainder from PACs.
It's still the same extra-strength Tylenol capsule, but it now comes in a new triple-sealed box and bottle. Now there's no getting inside the container without it being noticeable.
First of all, you got the seal on the outside.
Yeah,
you have to tear open the seal to get into the bottle. Once you get the bottle, you've got a seal on the outside of the cap. Okay, you tear open that seal. You open it up, and this is the exact same bottle that it was in. You open it up, and you've got another safety seal right here. So in essence, you have 3 seals you have to get through to get to the medication.
The McNeil Company, makers of Tylenol, also warns customers not to use the medication if the seal is broken. Some pharmacists say customers still think twice when purchasing any pain relief medication. But the new tightly sealed Tylenol capsule package is expected to alleviate many fears.
Many of the drugstores haven't received the triple-sealed medication, but shipments are coming in. And once the popular pain reliever is back on the shelf, pharmacists expect the drug to sell.
People have been asking about it. They want it back on the shelf. I think that the scare is over now and that people are ready to start buying Tylenol again.
With the new packaging comes a slight increase in price, but some people say that extra cost is probably worth it. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News. The extra-strength Tylenol capsule now comes in a tamper-resistant box. The new triple-sealed box is noticeably different from Tylenol in tablet form. With the new packaging comes a slight increase in price.
First of all, you got the seal on the outside. You have to tear open the seal to get into the bottle. Once you get the bottle, you've got a seal on the outside of the cap. Okay, you tear open that seal. You open it up, and this is the exact same bottle that it was in. You open it up, and you've got another safety seal right here. So in essence, you have 3 seals you have to get through to get to the medication.
Also on the bottle is a warning to customers not to use the medication if the seal is broken. Many of the drugstores haven't received the new safety-sealed medication, but once the shipment comes in, pharmacists expect the drug to sell.
People have been asking about it. They want it back on the shelf. I think that the scare is over now and that people are ready to start buying Tylenol again.
The popular pain reliever should be on the shelf by Christmas. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
you may not appreciate that. Most of you here grew up with things like running water piped in, that's west coast into the Los Angeles area. And all this gas that we've been flaring to, the government had built what was known as the Big Inch and the Little Inch crude oil pipelines that went from the Gulf.
Need to be enacted if we're to have adequate supply.
I'm fed up with regulation. I've had it. It's difficult to administer. It's unfair to the American public. You will ultimately pay a severe price if you continue to have this regulation.
The new product comes after years of disparity between banks and stock firms caused by federal banking regulations. Central Bank President Walter Gervan says in the long run, the consumer will be the winner with the deregulation.
The total sum and substance of the effect of the deregulation of depository institutions on the consumer means that the small saver, Mr. and Mrs. John Q. Public, now have access to the same earnings rates as large corporations and individuals in the very high income stream. For instance, this morning on a large certificate of deposit over $100,000, we would pay from 8 to 8.25%. But the consumer with a minimum of as little as $1,000 could put it in our easy access investment account and earn 8%. So the disparity which used to exist between the rates paid large savers and the rates paid small savers is now almost completely disappeared.
Stockbroker Ben Walker says he welcomes the competition.
They should have been able to do it long ago. They have been held back in a certain sense, and they will take some business from the brokerage firms. But I think that the business that they take, we're going to take some from them. There's going to be an intense rivalry for a while, and I think if that what the consumer will finally end up doing is some are going to feel more comfortable with banks, some are going to feel more comfortable with brokerage firms.
Financial experts say it'll probably take several months for consumers to understand the new programs and to decide what'll be to their benefit. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Child support.
The complex law passed by the legislature setting up the investment plan counted on interest income to generate enough money to meet the $45 million set aside for school construction. In the fall, interest rates had dropped enough to force officials to revise that $45 million down to just less than $40 million. Now, new revisions on the declining interest could push that figure to as low as $32 million.
So far, the authority has only given a few schools any of the money, keeping the rest to collect as much interest as possible. But now, the authority is reportedly considering withdrawing all of the money and giving each of the schools its share of the $32 million.
Are we getting ready to give them out their money? Yeah. No, because we don't even have a procedure established today to where you can do that. This money has to be controlled. They have to comply with it. Now, very possibly a procedure could be developed to do that.
But State School Superintendent Wayne Teague, also a member of the authority, says the idea is being considered and that guidelines to ensure the money is only spent on approved projects is being drafted.
My big concern has been, can we put audit trails on the dollars, make sure the accountability is there? And I see no problem with that, but we'll make sure.
But Mr. Broadwater's primary fear appears to be when and how the state could get its best deal on the investment income.
This is the only way you can base what you're doing on. How much would I have if I released it all next week? In other words, that's what we're trying to see, and how much has it grown? How much are we short of the 100%?
The authority is expected to meet next week to consider this proposal. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
There are 9 people, 2 women and 7 men, vying for the support of 11,861 voters in District 8. City officials say the turnout for the vote has been low, and that may make quick work of totaling the votes after the polls close at 7. The District 8 council seat was left vacant when John Starr resigned after being elected to the Alabama House of Representatives November 2nd. There was considerable debate in the council after that about when the special election should be held and whether or not the vote should come from the old District 8 boundary lines or the new ones set up under the citywide redistricting plan. An Attorney General's opinion finally answered both those questions a few weeks ago by determining not only the date for the election, but also that the votes should come from the new District 8 lines.
We need some good, sound leadership in Washington, D.C., and they know if they don't do it, they can't negotiate on an empty stomach. And that's what they need to be told and taught, and we need to do that.
Jimmy Baggett's opposition to the way the federal government controls agriculture was echoed by many of his colleagues at this Alabama Farm Bureau-sponsored meeting. Some even talked of a farmer's strike.
The American people and our American government is forcing us to do this. That's to put our tractors in the shed for 1 year, and we don't want to do it, but they're forcing us to do it. The farmers are going out, and we've got to have some help.
Most of the farmers complain that they're unable to make a profit, and unlike most businesses that operate on a cost-plus basis, farmers have to work under a cost-minus situation. Many of the farmers were hoping to tell their problems to Alabama's congressional delegation, but because Congress is still in session, the lawmakers sent representatives. Senator Howell Heflin's aide, Charlie Mitchell, assured the group that his boss is working for the farmer, but the Congress is ruled by an urban bloc. Lieutenant Governor-elect Bill Baxley was there listening to what was being said, and when the time came, he offered suggestions.
Ought to be in really playing hardball at the international level and taking what we can produce and going out and delivering it to the rest of the world, and quit letting us be the gumps in every trade agreement that comes out, and use agriculture. That's a much more powerful weapon than oil.
Mr. Baxley also says the state should take advantage of its water system and port facilities to develop world markets for Alabama commodities. Governor-elect George Wallace says there's not much a governor can do to help farmers but to try and keep state taxes down.
And I can assure you that no tax that indirectly or directly affects the farm people of this country would receive a veto by George Wallace if it came to my desk.
Dennis Layton, WSFA TV News.
Better than expected. That's how Neil Doblin, general manager of Gafers, describes business this Christmas season.
Our better dress and better sportswear departments are having some of their greatest months in their history, but even our value departments are also having tremendous increases also.
Mr. Doblin says part of their success lies in aggressive advertising, a beefed-up sales force, and a lot of sale merchandise. This year, many merchants were anxious about the recession, putting a squeeze on our wallets. They were afraid consumers might not spend as much this year as they have in the past. But most consumers say they are buying just as much.
Spending just about the same amount, not charging this year.
Are you buying the same type of items this year?
Not really. Not quite as many toys this year.
Going more for things that maybe last longer?
Yeah.
Toys, always big on Christmas lists, are selling well this year, especially this little fellow. And of course, video games and home computers have flooded the market this year, but manufacturers say they're not selling as well as expected. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
The results of today's voting were complete less than an hour and a half after the polls closed. Less than 24% of the 11,861 voters in the district turned out to cast a ballot. E.T. Bud Chambers fell just 25 votes short of the majority that was needed to win without a runoff. The voting went like this: Jerry Brewer, 68, E.T. Bud Chambers, 1373. 5 of those votes were challenged. Joe Clark, 28, J.W. Knapp, 7, Mindy Mantle, 325, Lamar Wagner, 613, Ed Watley, 85, Sharon Whitaker, 269, and David Witt, 26 votes.
I'm just glad that we're in the runoff. We're in it to win. We're going to win on January the 4th. We had a short time to organize a campaign. We only had a few days because I qualified right up to the very deadline. And I've already been in touch with the other candidates in the race, and I have their pledge of support. And they did a fine, outstanding job to make an effort to represent the people of District 8.
We were confident today that we'd lead in a big way, and we feel certain we'll win in January.
What will you be doing between now and then?
Well, we'll just be going to the people and try to get into more neighborhoods and listen to their problems and try to come up with some ideas that we're solving them.
The runoff election will be held January 4th. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
It's impossible. Now, when we don't recognize, I might not buy your product every day. You businessmen, darling, isn't it? When you go into New York and all of our people, that people understand farm problems, and there's no really need for them. We're trying to preserve the farmers of this state. For 3 years, he's lost money. If there was ever a time that he doesn't need any additional cost, that any nation in the world, that quality, quantity, and price unequal in the world.
Hey, bye-bye now.
We've talked about, you know, all of the distractions and the things that we've got planned for them to do this week, and you know, they've got to make the transition from preparation to having a good time, and you know, I think they've done it. I was impressed with the way we prepared last week in Auburn, and if this morning's any indication, you know, they're serious about the football game too, and so I think we can get it all done, and I think we'll be ready to play Saturday night.
This 54-yard touchdown
Well,
pass
you know, certainly we'd like to finish as high as we can this year, and I think it will give us some momentum going into next year. So it's a big football game for us. There's no question about that.
Hoping that we win the game, you know, we could move up in the top 10, maybe us, you know, because a lot of the top 10 teams are playing each other. This game will decide, you know, where the team ends up in the inning and how to start out next year, probably.
It means a lot to us. Coach Staff feels like if we win this game, and because some of the teams in the top 20 now are going to be beat top 10, and maybe we can finish in the top 15, maybe in the top 10. So, and you know, and that's a big challenge for us because we wanted to be number one this year, and we had a lot of big upsets. But winning this ball game would mean a lot for us going into next year.
They are tied with the Washington Redskins for the National Football Conference League.
Thursday night at 8, TV 12 Sports presents the Tangerine Bowl Preview with an in-depth look at the 15th-ranked Auburn Tigers as they prepare for the Eagles of Boston College. Both are coming off winning years, and both are going to their first bowl game after a long dry spell. TV 12's Phil Snow brings you all the preparations and all the excitement as the Tigers get ready for Saturday's game in Orlando, Florida. It's the Tangerine Bowl Preview, Thursday night at 8 here on TV 12.
A packed house was on hand at Memorial Coliseum this morning as Bryant made the announcement that so many had anticipated. Looking tired and somewhat sad, he read from a prepared statement.
There comes a time in every profession when you need to hang it up. And that time has come for me as head football coach at the University of Alabama. My main purpose as director of athletics and head football coach here at the University of Alabama has been to field the best possible teams, to improve each player as a person, and to produce citizens who will be a credit to our present-day society. We have been successful in most of these areas, but now I feel the time is right for change in football leadership. We lost 2 big football games this season that we should have won, and we played only 4 or 5 like a Bryant coach team should play, whatever that is. I love the players, but in my opinion, they deserve better coaching than they've been getting from me. And that's why I'm stepping down in an effort to see that they get better coaching from someone else.
Bryant went on to say he would stay on as athletic director at Alabama. Then University President Dr. Joab Thomas announced the new football coach.
We interviewed some from the internal staff. We interviewed several people from outside. But the person who emerged unequivocally as the obvious successor to Coach Bryant was Coach Ray Perkins of the New York Giants. Ray Perkins of Petal, Mississippi. Ray Perkins, a wide receiver on another national championship team. Ray Perkins, who had played with Galen McCulloch at the University of Alabama. A person who has been a winner every place he's been. And another coach who wanted to answer when Mother called. And Mother has called again for Ray Perkins to come back as head coach at the University of Alabama. And he has very graciously and very eagerly, I might say, responded in the affirmative.
Dr. Thomas said Perkins had agreed to a lucrative 5-year, $100,000 per year salary, which does not include outside income associated with the job. Coach Bryant was then asked his thoughts on Alabama's new coach.
He's a great leader. He's a great team man. He's unselfish. And, of course, I followed him through his assistant coaching career and in college and pro, and I think he's done a terrific job everywhere he's been.
So the 25-year coaching career of Paul Bear Bryant at Alabama has come to an end. No longer will the legendary man in the houndstooth hat lean up against the goalpost here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Reporting from Tuscaloosa, Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
Were living in one area, pretty easy. 442 homicide cases in 1980. The total property loss computed by Alabama. I call for a wage assignment law in that area and a Department of Victims Affairs.